We have worked so hard to make sure that all people can get a chance at college. When I hear Jimmy's story, it's pretty clear we have a long way to go to learn how to give second chances. When I see someone like Jimmy who is smart, who is motivated, who has performed well academically, and he's just trying to get his life back on track and his education back on track after a disaster occurred, I have to ask myself, why does it have to be that hard? And for adult students, it's not just hard getting back into college. It's really hard to be an adult student when you're trying to be a spouse and a mother and a father and an employee and all the other things we have to be as adults. I've got a front row seat to this narrative. This is Mark. This is my husband. He's an adult student right now. This is him sitting at our living room table doing homework. If you come to my house at midnight on any given weeknight, he's probably sitting there doing homework. He's also probably wearing that Momentum Year t-shirt because he loves that t-shirt as much as Bruce loves momentum itself. Mark's story is actually a Purpose First story. You learned about Purpose First yesterday. So Mark went to college right out of high school. He graduated, he got into a career, and he was miserable. Absolutely miserable. He didn't have Purpose First when he went to school the first time. So for Mark, being back in school right now is a second chance at his dream. And his dream is to have a fulfilling career. His dream is that when our children are old enough to know what he does for a living, they'll be proud of him. 25 years ago, when he first went to school, this is what his study tables looked like. You know study tables, right? His study tables look a lot different now. 25 years ago, his midterm project wasn't doubling as a coaster for Teddy Grahams. But he wanted Evie and Jude to be proud of him. So he's getting a second chance. Now, I'm going to say what I know many of you are all thinking. This is a privileged story of returning to school. We have more resources and fewer pressures than most of the adults we're going to be talking about today. And I recognize that. But I want to share a secret with you, as much as something can be secret when you tell 700 of your closest friends in a live stream audience. Hey, Mom. There have been times when Mark wanted to quit, and there have been times when I wanted him to quit. Imagine that. I'm a higher education advocate. I work for Complete College America. I've been working for years specifically on returning adults, and there were times when I felt pushed to my brink because of the balancing act and the challenges and the struggles. And if that's not that hard for me, how hard is it for everyone else? So again, this constant theme, why does it have to be that hard? I understand the learning needs to be hard. Why does the balancing have to be that hard? Good news is, there are professionals all across the country who've been asking themselves that same question for decades. They've been tailoring their programs to meet the needs of adult students. They've figured out what works, and they're doing a really good job at that. They're getting results with the student population that in the past has been relegated to a part-time path that ends in an 8-year graduation rate for a 2-year degree. They've figured it out. Bad news is, oftentimes, these are boutique programs. These are programs, at worst, that are the ignored or unappreciated stepchildren of the traditional university. But that's got to change. At this point in history, that has to change. When Mark was filling out his college applications, I was sitting behind this spreadsheet in my office at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. I was given the unenviable task of figuring out what is the math that gets us to 60% attainment by 2025. So I did what every good economist would do. I built a model. I made some assumptions about improvements in graduation rate, and I fed the pipeline of students through that model. We didn't get there. So I said, well, let's be more ambitious. Let's raise those graduation rates up even higher. Still didn't get there. It became really clear that there is no math that gets you to 60% by 2025 without significant numbers of returning adults. When I joined CCA, I realized this wasn't just Indiana math. This is just the math. So when I was sitting behind this spreadsheet, there are professionals like me in states across the country sitting behind equally eye-opening and somewhat depressing spreadsheets, realizing returning adults is what we need to meet our goals. Lumina Foundation did us a great service as a nation with their last strategic plan when they did this math at the macro level. So if this is how many students need to come from the returning adult population, both the some college no degree and no college no degree, if that's the math, we're all in this together. And not only is that what the math tells us, the math also tells us we can't do boutique programs anymore. The country needs scale. We know a little bit about scale at CCA. We know that step one is you look at the data and you examine the problem, and you use that data to build a will to do something about it. Based on what I've just shared with you, I think we're there. As a country, we are there. We know we need to address this. But step two is having a clear solution, something that has been done before that we know works, something that gets big results, not change at the margin, something that can be scaled across the country. We have a name for something like that at CCA. You know what it is? Yeah, that's not rhetorical. What is it? You know it. Game changer. You may be familiar with structured schedules as a game changer. This has been something that has been a game changer for a long time for us. So we've long advocated that students have a predictable, consistent schedule that leads to on-time graduation to help them balance their lives, especially for non-traditional students. And structured schedules are absolutely still critical. They're just not enough. So we can't just give students a structured schedule and call it a day. We need to give them a better deal altogether. That's okay, you can clap. It's exciting. It is my pleasure today to be able to unveil CCA's newest game changer called A Better Deal for Returning Adults. So sticking with the idea of the schedule, if you would come up to someone at CCA even a year ago, even 6 months ago, and said, what do you think about students who take 1 or 2 courses at a time? We would have, across the board, every staff member said, that is not something that we would advocate because we know that is not a recipe for success. Ask me that same question today, I'll give you a different answer. I'll say, yeah, you can take 1 course at a time if it's a 4-week course and you do that year-round. You can take 2 courses at a time if it's an 8-week course and you do that year-round. These compressed schedules work for adults because taking 5 courses at a time isn't just challenging because it's a lot of time, it's also a lot of deadlines. It's 5 different to-do lists, and you're balancing those to-do lists with all your other to-do lists. So taking 1 or 2 courses at a time in a compressed manner works for adults. The data prove it. So that's a better deal, if you can take 1 or 2 courses at a time and still graduate on time. It's also a better deal if you show up on campus as a returning adult student, and rather than the people there saying, that outside life you have is an impediment, it's a challenge, it's going to compete for your time. If instead of doing that, people say, you have rich experience, you have college-level credit-worthy learning that has happened outside of the walls of this institution, and we're going to put it on your transcript. PLA has been going on for a long time, prior learning assessment. People have been doing that for decades. But as someone said in our breakout session yesterday, you kind of had to know a guy to take advantage of that. So it's a better deal if students come in and there's an embedded process, everyone goes through it, they are invited and welcomed and instructed on how to demonstrate their college-level credit-worthy learning that they got from outside the institution, whether through portfolio or exam or translating certifications that they got in the workplace to college credit. All those options, if students walk through an embedded process to do those things, that's a better deal. And it's going to shorten their time to graduation and have significantly other benefits as well. So the other thing about CCA and the CCA-isms that you've heard time is the enemy of completion because the longer it takes to graduate, the more likely it is that life gets in the way. With returning adult students, it isn't if life gets in the way, it is when life gets in the way, how frequently it gets in the way, and how badly it gets in the way. And it's not just life that gets in the way. Sometimes college bureaucracy and process and readmissions procedures, those things can get in the way as well if students don't know how to navigate them. So rather than having a rotating cast of academic advisors that help you figure out what courses to take, it's a better deal if you have a coach who can help you get back into college, help you with your career planning, help you navigate what you need to do for institutional policy and practice. But beyond that, to be a trusted advisor, someone that you can go to as a student and say, my kid is in the hospital and that is getting in the way of college completion. What can I do about it? Or you can say, my husband just left me, and that's getting in the way of me going to school. What can I do about it? Or even something a little more common, like, this is a really crazy week for me at work. I don't know if I'm going to get that paper done this week. What can I do about it? So having a coach to help students navigate all of those things, rather than the 10 office visits and 14 places that Jimmy had to go, that's a better deal. And if you have those things in place, those 3 simple things, then the next logical step is to let people know you did that. Reach out to former students with some college no degree, but also all those adults out there that never went to college because they didn't think they could make it work. And now they realize it's necessary for their career. Reach out to those former students, potential students, let them know there's a better deal in place, and we want you back.